What we're going to be covering tonight is we're going to be focused on fencing. I don't know if we're going to be getting to doing some live action video reference per se, because I kind of need to work on exporting that. We might take a look at some videos of that, but we'll probably save like doing drawovers studies of video reference for Wednesday. After I want to preferably do that after I've got some videos already prepped and where I've already done some studies myself. But there's a lot of really good videos on YouTube. If you like, there's a YouTube channel called like the Modern Rogue, for example, that I found, which is on sword fighting techniques and so on. Which they have some videos on sword fighting techniques and so on, but it's not just on that. It's about like secret agent stuff and thieves and other things. But there are some other YouTube channels I've found that have some good stuff on them regarding like sword fighting stuff. There's a few videos, like Vox has a fencing history of fencing mini documentary here. Olympic videos on Markiplier. Markiplier has a fencing video. Jesus Christ. Rapier versus katana. Ooh, that's interesting. Lightsaber fencing is now a thing in France. HBO documentary. But yeah, there's lots of fodder here to go through. Duelist, realistic sword fight. Neat. And there's also like some other videos I found, like analyzing sword fights in films, that I'll probably bring up again later when we get more into the video side of things. But for today, this is mainly what we're going to be using to do our studies. So this is a giant ass PureRef file I made of like tons and tons of sword fighting reference, mainly fencing duels, but also there's like medieval stuff. There's a few Eastern stuff, but it's mostly like this stuff. It's mostly like a Olympic fencing type stuff like this. And the reason why I want to focus on like a single subject, and I want to make more of a thing of focusing on a single subject when we do these in the future, is because like sword fights, for example, we might focus on boxing. Someday, like we could do like a people watching sort of thing where it's like casual people standing around in the street and reading or sitting or whatever. Like focusing on a single particular subject gives us a chance to really think about like the dynamics of that subject. In the case of fencing, like we're thinking about like a lot of stuff about like the act of dueling two characters dueling together, or two figures engaged in combat trying to outthink and outplay each other, and also like the dynamics of that are involved with like holding a sword weapon and utilizing that sword weapon and having confidence in that sword weapon, even when you're just like standing around or preparing to go into a sword fight or something. So getting momentum like focused on a particular subject, I think would be a good idea. By that same token, like in the future, I might do something like we might have a skateboarding focus session, or I don't know, whatever else, really. Some double images in here. So this should be enough for it to keep us busy for this evening. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a mix of timed poses, usually around like a minute or so, or 2 minutes. And we'll also be doing draw-over studies of these. So I'm going to maybe see if I'm going to see if I can. Hopefully this isn't too huge of a file that I can't upload it directly to the Drawing Corner chat. But let's see. Fencers. There we go. There we go. Goody. I can actually upload it. It's about 77 megs. But in order to read this file, you need a copy of PureRef, which is a free app that I'll post a link to right here. You can use that to export the images and stuff. I actually think I may export this as a single image board, because then I can just import the whole thing, the whole giant ass file into my drawing app and do my draw-over studies. Just taking like little pics of any of these poses here that I want to do. And I could technically do that for the whole session if I wanted, but I want to see if I can do. We're going to do a good amount of draw-over studies, but I also want to see us do some copy studies and stuff also, because there's draw-over studies are fantastic to help you like gauge your eye and to sort of kind of analyze something. And copy studies are like you take the training wheels off and you try bicycling on your own. So give me a little bit here. I have to hit the restroom real quick and we'll be getting started on our warm-up set. You're back. So, get set up here. So we are going to get Magnet Studio set up. So I'll get that set up for people to use. Let's move this off camera here. Let's put this on the poses, so anyone who wants to start drawing can. Before I officially start the timer. All right, so let's see here. Magma Studio. I'm gonna get this set up for folks. Oh, let me put on some stream beats real quick.
It's a website.
What's that?
Magnet Studio, it's a website?
Yeah, but you're gonna need the link that I'm gonna supply in order to draw with me. Just give me a second here.
Okay.
I just cleaned up my desktop, and my desktop's already getting disorganized already. Maybe I should make like a default folder instead of desktop or a quick download folder, pinned folder, so I can just put like random shit that I save or download instead of on my desktop. Okay, so we're gonna create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 panels. So let's see here. 1, 2, 3. Fuck. Copy link. Okay, Jesus Christ. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Goody. And then 5 will be mine. Let's leave that there. And okay, so I will now start inviting people to the panels. So these are going to go in my Magma Studio link section in my Discord. So panel 1. Panel 2. Geez, we've already eaten up like about almost 30 minutes talking about this stuff. We better get into our drawing set soon. I might have us go a little overtime tonight just to make up for lost time, but we'll see.
Which channel are you posting the link?
It's in under voice chat channels. It's Magma Studio links.
Okay.
Do fencers get injured? Yes, they do. Like any other sport, they get injury too.
Cuts like for the with the swords.
Sometimes.
Fine.
I mean, they take a lot of safety precautions regarding the swords and stuff, but accidents happen.
Oh.
So yeah, what PureRef is, it's a collaborative drawing app. So now we're going to be able to see everyone drawing together on screen at once. So I'm going to actually get started on talking about what I wanted to cover today regarding the approach that we're going to be taking to doing these drawings. So if you look on my screen here. So a principle I want you guys to keep in mind is the Waterfall Principle right here. For gesture drawing and stuff, like you generally want like a sense of fluidity. Like you don't like what often happens when people are drawing figures and stuff, when they make the figures too symmetrical, they start looking kind of like a bulgy Michelin Man, sort of like. It's too symmetrical on either side and stuff. You get like these bulges and stuff. And it looks really stiff and flat and stuff. And even when the character is like posed in a dynamic pose, you can get like a Michelin van effect going on. So avoid like the snowman. Other people like they call it the Mr. Hanky. Because he looks like the South Park character. He's just like a string of poo. So avoid the snowman. What you want is waterfalls. Now, one of the easiest ways to wrap your head around how those work is these skeletons that I drawn before class today. Profile view is the easiest way to see how the waterfall works. You have these kind of cascading rhythms that go down the form, because the way that the body works is it's like a series of really wonky boxes that are kind of balanced together, playing against each other. So you want to think in those terms, and like this really stiff skeleton that's kind of like an orthographic front view of the skeleton. Even this has rhythms that go through it, and I've illustrated them here a little bit. Like there's a rhythm down here on the side of the rib cage. There's a rhythm out here for the hip. There's a rhythm down here for the thigh that goes in, curves around the kneecap, curves around the outer thigh, then goes down to the ankle. Stuff like that. There's one that technically goes down like this, sternum. There's one that goes like out here from the shoulder, around the elbow joint, around the forearm, and the hand here. So one of the tools I want you guys using tonight is the arrow in your gesture drawing. I want you to be utilizing arrows, showing the direction that stuff is going. And here's an example right here I did from a photo reference. Like you can fill these out a little bit more, but basically I want you paying attention to and adding little directional arrows onto the lines you make, like this, because that keeps you thinking about how the lines are moving in a certain direction.
Did you put that specific like page of skeletons in the chat?
I will. And the next step after you do that, after you like add those rhythms in, is you add volume to them, and you do that by wrapping forms over it and stuff, and maybe closing it off a little bit like that. That creates volume out of those rhythm lines that you're making. generally speaking, most of the figures that you're going to be seeing have an asymmetry to them. There's going to be like one leg that's going to be favored, even when somebody's standing straight on, even if it's like very subtle. If somebody's standing perfectly straight, there's usually one leg or the other that's slightly being favored. But anyway. So the other thing I want you guys paying attention to is I want you to be paying attention to the procedure of hierarchy of how you approach the figure. Sometimes you can deviate a little bit on these in order, depending on what you're doing. Like sometimes you might want to start with the torso, but most of the time you're usually going to start with like the head, because the head is your measuring point for the rest of the figure. Once you do, then you say step 1, head. Step 2 is the spine and the torso. Step 3 is the support. Step 3 is the weight and the balance. So the weight and the balance is usually like the center of balance is usually somewhere around like the corner of the ear socket, this ear and the jaw socket, in like this kind of straight plumb line down to the ground. Usually, not always. You can also further find like about where like the weight is from like the front of the nose down to the bottom usually. But weight is kind of like, you kind of have to make a judgment call on whether something feels like it's off balance or not. If you're looking at something and it feels off balance to you, when you really scrutinize it, you can use stuff like this to kind of gauge it a little bit. And bear in mind when people are moving dynamically, like their center of balance and their weight are going to shift around a lot. And sometimes when they're mid-action, like the weight is shifting over in a direction because the body's moving or catching itself. So keep that in mind. Like think a little bit about the action that's happening when you draw it. So 1, 2, 3, the weight. You want to watch for that weight. Want to watch for the weight is where the weight is in the pose. And find some way to indicate that. Once you kind of figure that out a little bit, you draw the supports like the legs. You can keep the feet as like simple kind of triangle shapes. But yeah, like use the arrow rhythms for the legs stuff. And try to keep them like very dynamic. And then after you've kind of gotten the legs pretty well established, you can go in for the arms. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's generally the procedure that you should follow, and then of course you can like elaborate a little bit. Like you can show what direction things are turning in by adding little ellipses and volume to them with the ellipse forms. As you're doing these, also try to keep in mind an overall line of action that's going through the figure. Like look for an overall line of action in the pose that describes with a single line the overall thrust of the pose. Anyway, so I'll copy paste this to chat. This is a crappy taking my notes version of a Michael Hampton lecture I checked out. So keep in mind that what I'm doing is basically a watered down version of how Michael Hampton teaches. So if you want to, I would recommend picking up his book or trying to see if you can find some videos to subscribe to with him. And looks like I got a raid of 2 people from Nara Exposito. Thank you. The itty bitty but very valued raid. So I'm going to be posting the thing I was talking about in here. change that. So the other thing is what I've just utilized there. I want you doing this in some drawovers to kind of get started with it, get used to it. There's some invented figures using this, by the way. But you can see what I did here. Like, I paid attention to the direction things are turning and moving and stuff.
I think
Huh?
I added a second layer by mistake.
That's fine. I mean, you can just hide a layer, or you can right-click or delete it, I think. So anyway, what I want people doing right now is we'll walk through this procedure using drawover methods. You can use the on-screen thing to practice from and to keep warming up if you like. But I'm going to be leading us into some drawing practice. So first off, I want you to well, if you have the PureRef file, you'll be able to copy paste stuff directly into Magma Studio. Like for example, I'll show on my version of the app here. That's 5. There we go. There we go. So I just like hit Control C here. There, easy peasy. And then I just lower opacity on this. Create a new layer that I can draw on. And let's see here. Maybe I should move this so I have enough space to do more of these. So I got a new layer that I'm going to draw on. I'm going to use red. There we go. Alright, so first off, I actually want people to pay close attention to the line of action of these poses before you get too far into the gesture, because I don't think everyone here has quite wrapped their heads around line of action just yet. So there's a primary line of action here. Remember that little trick I was talking about of we're going to be attaching arrows on the ends of our lines to kind of show the direction that we're sort of pushing them in. So be sure to add those to your lines of actions here just to kind of get warmed up with that. So we got this, and then there's this other line of action here that's happening for this figure. Kind of happening off camera a little bit, I would say. What's the overall thrust of the pose? I would say that maybe the leg could be utilized a little bit. But I think the overall thrust of the pose is something like this. The leg is almost kind of a secondary line of action here, I would say. Then we got this right here that's going over to there. You can add additional arrows to kind of further reinforce the direction it's going along here. I think this is enough to work with, honestly. We're not walking through the procedure just yet, but like I wanted to start us with like strong line of action first. Because I want people to have this in the back of their heads while they're doing these. So we'll do a few of them like this before we start going through the procedure that I'm talking about. Like I want people to read the line of action and stuff. So I'm going to add a little bit of directional volume to this. His legs. Directional volume on the chest here, the torso, because we see the top of the shoulders here. These lines are wrapping over. I've decided they're going to wrap over this way. Wrapping over like that. I might add a couple arrows for that. side plane to the head there. Indication of the neck. See, so if you do a study like this is not tracing. This is studying to understand. You could technically use this as a starting point for designing designing like an illustration or something too. Like you could take this and use and like start like iterating on what you learned here to develop like develop a different pose. Like you saw that stuff that Ethan was showing off in the pre-stream video, where like he'd draw like the torso mass. In fact, maybe let's throw a little bit of him what he was showing off today in here too, somewhat. Like I'm gonna make a new layer. So I need to rewatch this video to really kind of digest what he was talking about, but this might be an opportunity to get a little bit of this in too. Like he's talking about you start with a torso mass, and well, you can do like a study of it at the angle that it is in the draw over if you like. But what Ethan was talking about was like reversing the direction of the torso. Like how would this look if we mirrored it the other way around? Like this would be the back here, and that would be like the shoulders and stuff. This other arm would be back in here. Just talk about repositioning stuff in space. So I don't know if we'll necessarily focus on that, but that was like a really good thing that Ethan was showing off in the video before class. So anyway, now that we have these guys here, just define them a little bit more. Stuff. What time is it? Okay, Google, set timer for 20 minutes.
20 minutes, and that's starting now.
So we'll keep going at this for about 20 minutes. It'll be just more draw-over studies. You feel free to deviate from these to do some of the 2-minute studies if you feel like you are ready to kind of comfortably test yourself, taking off the training wheels on the 2-minute time poses that are on screen over there. But we're going to do several of these. So let's see here. Yeah, it's gonna be the practice of you just like grab a pose, like this, for example. Oops. Grab a pose, get to the layer that you're doing the drawing on. Try to find an initial line of action, I would say, before you do the rest of the pose. But now that I have that, I'm gonna get a little bit of the head in. Doesn't matter if this is a little bit pixely. So this is just a loose gesture study after all. Let's get the rhythm of the leg going. Once you start getting into this, you can do these pretty quickly, but you do want to try to slow down and be observant where you can. So I'm concentrating on this lady's pose first. What's cool is because these are duelist, you get a 2-in-1 for a lot of these, because there's 2 figures on screen. And they're both reacting to each other too. Like he's reacting to her. I think that's a woman. Or are they both women? I don't know. It's hard to say in those fencing outfits. I'm kind of getting trying to get an overall thrust to the pose here. They're kind of doing this, honestly. There is kind of like a bend to their legs, but like the overall kind of, it's like, like that. Let me just. There we go. So we'll start with that head now. What do? We add the spine and the torso. Tilt to the shoulders there. That shoulder is tilting down over there. There's the other shoulders like somewhere down over there in X-ray mode. Get that foot down there, the other foot back there. Look for those rhythms that create like that kind of waterfall effect. Add arrows to the ends of them where you can. It's pretty easy to figure out where the arrow is on the end of the sword. Let's get a little tangled. I'm going to move on to another one now. So I kind of need to move through these rapidly, I think. So remember, look for that line of action first. What's interesting is like that. So we have a main line of action of this guy right here, but we can almost see like the line of action is like, the line of action becomes also part of the bend of the curve of the sword. It's bending against like the back of this guy's neck, looks like. And he's almost doing like this kind of thing. Maybe use a different color, I think, for differentiating from the line of action that I've drawn. So remember, start with that head, get the torso in. Look for the gravity, center of gravity, center of the weight. So center of gravity somewhere here, somewhere on the pit of the crotch, I would say. The weight right here that he's compensating for with the spread out stance. That's like here. So there's like center of gravity, rough guesstimate of center of gravity, and this is where like the weight is. This is the counterbalance over here. The counterbalance is actually both of the legs and the widened stance. So now that we have that, get like a rhythm here. Just like this. I'll have to use another color again. Whoops. So since he's really thrusting forward, I'm using that in the direction of the torso here. Although, yeah, I think it still does the cascading waterfall rhythm. It's still going down like this, kind of. Around the buttocks, around the thigh. Center of gravity is going to be something like that. He's off the ground, jumping. Weight is somewhere around here. Pit of the crotch, or like base of the neck, somewhere around there. Like these would be different measuring points. Pit of the crotch and like the base of the jaw near the ear and the front of the nose are good measuring points to kind of gauge about like the balance of the weight of the figure a little bit. So maybe like all three of these, 1, 2, 3, would be handy. Help sort of gauge that sense of weight to the pose. You can also do like arrows outside thing to further sort of help you sort of understand and observe before you put your lines down inside the form a little bit. So you kind of have a strategy before you put your lines down a little bit. Like, that's going to go like that, and I want this to do that. That. And I said I didn't start with his head because there's a lot to emphasize on the thrust of the body here. So there's always going to be exceptions to the procedure. It's usually good to start with the head because the head is your measuring point, especially when you're like not doing a draw over study. But like there's a lot of stuff happening here. Like there's this overall thrust to the figure that's being like bent down with the sword. And then there's this guy right here who's reacting to that and crouching down. He's got kind of this downward thrust momentum that's going sort of like that way. So these kind of studies right here, this is the sort of stuff that you want to do for like when you're trying to understand some poses for animation. Like there's a lot of information that you make visual observation on using like a gesture drawing thing like this. This is also a starting point for you for like constructing like what you would use to construct shapes off of. So this leg is actually really straight. The whole pose is very unified. Alright, so next pose I'm gonna grab here. Let's see if I can grab a good one. I can just like click one of these, close my eyes. Yeah, that's, I don't know. That one's a little, well, yeah, I'll try it. It's gonna be tricky, but I'll try this one. So first off, we look for the initial line of action right here. For me, that looks something like this. That, and then we have a secondary line of action that's sort of propping him up right here. This guy's line of action is like something like this, because he's reacting to that guy. I'm going to maybe make this outside the form here a little bit, so I have more room to draw the rest of the thing. So now I'm going to go in. So what's my strategy for doing this? Well, start with the head. Establish the head direction there. It looks to me like this torso is kind of bending towards us a little bit. Like, if we're looking at like this from the front view, the pelvis is a little bit twisted. You can see, oh yeah. Actually no, I think the pelvis is turned towards us, and the, let's see here. Okay, we can see like the front of the body there. So the torso is like slightly bending. I would say it's doing something like this if we're looking at it from the front. Like that. Okay. got this sword coming out here. Center of gravity somewhere around here with counterbalancing on the legs, and this widens of the stance. He's kind of moving back over that way too. So his center of gravity is kind of in a state of flux at the moment. I should really look into some animator videos describing like center of gravity a little bit more, because it's kind of like something that's easier to observe but harder to kind of quantify. Like you can usually tell if something looks off balance, and like not in a like figure moving in action way, but describing the science behind what is happening. I think I need to look a little. I think I need to brush up a little bit on that. So I'm kind of starting with the legs here, which is a little strange, but legs are pretty important on this pose. At the top plane of that shoe there. The next set, I think we should definitely do some copy studies. But this is good for kind of orienting ourselves to the procedure a bit. I'm sort of kind of trying to train myself the way I'm going to be drawing when I get to the freehand versions of these. Let me add some of these in here. Those are pretty nice. Okay, Google, how much time left on timer?
T-minus 4 minutes and 31 seconds.
Nice, there should be enough time for at least one more of these. So let's random. No, not that one. I want a good dual one. Random. Nope. The way we might do it tonight is we'll probably do like a set of draw over studies, and we'll do a set of copy studies, and we'll do a set of draw over studies back and forth. And we might like mid-session for one of these, like split them up. Might be cool to do a draw over study, then do a copy study alongside of it, or vice versa. Whatever keeps us visually engaged. So let's see here. Uh-oh. Oh, I fucked that up. So for anyone keeping track, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 figures on the page for the 100 figure homework that I assigned this week. Like draw over studies and copy studies count. I want to like have around 50 of each for this week for people. So let's see. This guy's kind of doing this. I mean, there's kind of a bend and stuff happening here, but like this is like the overall thrust of the pose for me. Then there's like some secondary line. There are secondary line of actions that are also like further breaking things down and stuff like this. For example, whoops. Alright, so start with the heads. Strategize a little bit about how you're going to work down from the head to the torso. I did kind of go straight to the legs a little bit quick, but I can still do the plumb lines for the center balance. So remember that the key areas to watch for is the front of the nose, the corner of the jaw and at the ear, where the jaw meets the ear, and the pit of the crotch. Remember to add those arrows onto the ends of your gestures. To show the direction stuff is kind of either going in or feels like it's going in. And as you start getting more in tune with this, like start trying to put more energy into it. Like, it should be kind of like a good feeling of flow to these drawovers that you're doing. Okay, Google, stop. I think that's good enough. All right. So, I'm going to give us a, let's see, what time is it? I'm going to give us a 7-minute break. Okay, Google, set timer for 7 minutes. Okay, Google, set timer for 7 minutes.
7 minutes, starting now.
So a lot of you are using that Disney puppet, which is fine. I would say that for the Disney puppet, if you're used to using that guy, like, let me use an example. You're using like the Disney puppet on one of these poses. You can follow a similar procedure using the Disney puppet. All you do is you just start adding like directional lines to its limbs and like stuff around the outside of it to sort of describe the outside of the form a little bit more. And I want you to use a really light touch when you do this stuff too, at least for your initial pass. You do that, and then you can just like start wrapping lines over it. The kind of Disney character, the Disney puppet limbs with those like stick limbs to add some directional volume to the pose. Somebody asked me a question? Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, I have you up so loud, you're setting off my own Google. Pretty great.
You see, this isn't too hard to do. I mean, we could do this in like a minute. These poses like this, so we should maybe do like 1 or 2 minute poses. I think 1 minute would be a good idea because it'll help us get less self-conscious about the poses and get more fluent and gestural with it. And that's also 20 more poses that'll count towards the homework. Oh, actually, we might need 2 minutes because a lot of these are two poses. All right, so let me see. I'm gonna take a peek real quick about like. Looks like we only have a few people in these in the Magma Studio class section. So it looks like number 2 has not been taken yet. So if you want to join in the Magma Studio drawing session, that is in my Discord, down in the Magma Studio link section here. You can pick one of the 4 panels to draw along with the rest of us. And I can jump around and do draw over demos. In fact, I should have done that on this. I can do that on this right now, actually. Like, I'm going to show you what I was talking about on one of these. See what's one that might be useful to use. This. Like, say like this one, for example. Start trying to create those rhythms with the pose and stuff, and within the pose. Look for the spine and the torso. Look for the kind of the wrapping forms of the arm. Look for like the center of gravity, like the pit of the crotch, the front of the nose, corner of the jawline, and the ear. And then you can wrap lines over it showing the direction of the form. You can also do outside lines. You can like do a you can do like broad notes about the line of action of the thrust of the pose, like that. The primary and secondary lines of action and stuff. But remember that here. So anyway, Radboots, here, I'll save this little demo I did for you so I can turn it off. Where's the snipping tool here? There we go. Alright, so I've uploaded the little demo to chat so I can turn this layer off for you so you can have the drawing area back for yourself. But yeah, that's an example of what I'm talking about. Alright, so everyone make sure you save your Magma Studio. Everyone make sure you save your Magma Studio file real quick before we move on. Because we're going to need blank drawing sections for this next timed drawing pose set that we're going to do. Just tucking the Discord window back where it belongs there. Okay, Google, how much time left on timer?
T-minus 41 seconds.
Alright, so I'm taking it that the reason why we're not seeing a huge amount of people on here is because people may want their own individual panels. So I'm gonna add panel 6. Panel 5 is mine. Panel 6. Panel 7. Wait, no, that wasn't the right. Was that the right panel? Yeah, that was the right panel. Okay, good. Panel 7. And panel 8. Okay, Google, stop. Eventually, when they have like the when the sequential beta is out of beta and this becomes a widely available feature, you'll be able to jump between the individual panels yourselves. But for now, like I can jump between them within my drawing app. It sometimes gets a little confused when I switch the panels because I can only have up to 5 active on the pro version of Discord. Oh, excuse me, of Magma Studio. So anyway, I'm going to do this, which is what I told you guys to do. Just save my demo. I'm going to be opening up a drawing space for it, so I'll save that. That is also going to go copy into Clip Studio. I actually have to make a new Clip Studio file here. So 3, 15, 20, 21, class demos, 1 day, fencing, action, gestures, studies. Save as. New folder. There we go. Cool. And now, whoops. Now I copy and drop that into my drawing app. So what I was talking about doing, so this file PureRef right here, is I can export, well actually no, I'll get into that later, but because we're going to be doing a set of timed figure poses right now. So I'm actually going to use my drawing app for the timed figure pose set, I believe. Alrighty, so let's get started. Okay, Google, set timer for 21 minutes, 30 seconds. I need to take a quick...
21 minutes and 30 seconds. Starting now.
Alright, back. Oops. I hit a bad button. Yeah, that's neat. Okay, so I'm gonna skip this image. Sorry about this, folks. Find a good starting image. Okay, Google, add 1 minute to timer.
Done. 1 minute added to your timer.
Alright, so this is a fairly neutral standing pose. Relatively speaking to the other fencing stuff we've been doing. So I'm going to maybe start with this one. So this is kind of what I'm seeing regarding that line of action for these. And basically, like, we're working without training wheels right now, so you have to use the different stuff that we've been breaking down into components as your GPS system to figure out the pose now. Get that head established. So note the pit of the crotch down to the floor, like the front of the face down to the floor. I'm not going to draw the, well, I might will, a little bit, right there. But notice the lean that's happening over here, of like, the weight right there. Like this foot about here, the heel is like somewhere down, like right up against the pit of the crotch, right there. The plumb line of the pit of the crotch. Now we can put the supports of the legs in a little bit more. Whoops. That was not enough time for that pose, I don't think. I may adjust the timing on these to see how much we need to really do the analysis that I feel we need to get this right. So these may work better for 5-minute poses. But I do hopefully want to get us to like kind of understand the procedure enough so that we can do shorter poses, maybe even like 2 or 1-minute poses. So remember those arrows stuff. If you didn't put them in, you can add them. I'm going to adjust the head actually over to the side a bit here. So the cool thing is, like when you're drawing like this, nothing's really set in stone completely. You can make adjustments. Kind of push the head over here. So I'm a little less concerned about this figure down here, but I'm at least going to get like a little kind of quick thing started of the figure there. I am thinking that 5 minutes would be a good time for these because a lot of these are going to be like double poses where we might need sufficient time for both. At the very least, I'm going to get like the direction of the torso here. Kind of tube sort of thing. So these guys here, let's maybe change from that because those guys are a little bit too heavy clothed for what I want it to do. Let's pick a better pose. This is pretty nice. Classic Hollywood fencing duel. So we got this. It's Basil Rathbone on the right, isn't it? So we got these overall shapes right here. One of the cool things about fencing is you can often see like where the lines of action kind of intersect. Especially when like the swords clash. So now that I got that, I'm going to put my lion's share of my attention on Basil here. That's going off down to wherever the floor is down below. I'm gonna keep this vignetted. I'll throw something like a replication of his feet are. His other leg is going to be going off camera severely though. Like this is a battle that's happening on stairs, so like his other leg is like further down the stairs somewhere, off camera. I don't know. I can kind of infer where his foot's going, a little bit. Yeah, I'm thinking 4 to 5 minutes on these would be best. So I'm going to extend some time on this pose here. After this pose, I'll switch to 5 minute. So his foot's further down there, so this foot's further up here. I'm gonna do that without making him look stumpy. I think it's a proportional thing, honestly. I'll put more attention to the basil for this, I think. Just want to get this guy's foot planted somewhere there. Just Basil's leg a bit. His leg is actually like angled down a little bit more now that I look at it. It's more like down here-ish. It's a nice like wide energetic stance here. His leg is really stretched out there. So like... Yeah, look for those, look for the pit of the crotch to drop a line to the ground from, and the front of the nose, and the little neck joint right there. So I'm going to switch it to 5 minutes now for these last two. Let's do like 2 more of these. That's a good one. We'll do this. So we want to try to like capture the drama of what's happening with that line of that initial line of action a little bit. The drama for me is that energetic thrust by this guy right here, where the other fencer is trying to parry or dodge back, and they feel harmed, kind of. Yeah, the fencer that's really thrusting, they're thrusting forward almost recklessly. Feels like a very reckless move to me. Actually, I think they're spaced out a little bit further now that I look at them. It's more like this. With like a sword stab that's going in like that. Make some adjustments, I think. I'm deviating a little bit from the procedure right now because I'm trying to go for like wrapping my head around the feeling of what's happening a bit more. So things are getting way more loose for me. which is fine. I can always bring it back to the procedure once I kind of feel satisfied with the initial kind of feeling of the gesture. This one is one I would definitely want to do a draw over study of for sure. There's a lot going on in here that I would want to maybe absorb from a draw over more. But this is like my first this is like my best first impression of the pose, and I'm seeing a lot of stuff in here that I want to capture more in depth. So I'm going to save this one for a draw over study for sure. For our next set, we'll go back to draw over studies for sure. Or maybe I could do that. How many have we done? Yeah, we got time. Maybe for the next 5-minute one, I can do a draw over of study of this. Let's make a little room here for that. I'm sort of running into the issue where there's a lot of cool shit happening in this that it becomes a little bit hard for me to edit it. And that's where the value of a draw over study would help me a bit with sort of breaking it down and analyzing it. So I've got about 30 seconds, so I'm going to search for the pose in my PureRef file. Found it. That's a pretty nice one too, not gonna lie. But here, I'm gonna do a draw over study of this. You can also use the draw over studies to kind of reorient yourself a bit if you find yourself wandering. Like I started to get a little bit visually confused with that last one. Alright, so that's the overall thrust of the pose for me. There's this guy whose head is sort of facing up that way, I think, a bit. There's the side plane and the front of the head of this fencer. I think that's the side plane and the back of the head of this fencer. So here's a great example of like, boom, we got this rhythm here, we got this rhythm here, we got this rhythm here, got this rhythm here, this rhythm here, that. To the crotch down there, front of the face, corner of the ear. So 1, 2, 3. For our little like kind of plumb line, sort of helping us gauge the weight and of the action. Just got her ball of her foot planted there, on the ground. Get some directional lines over the leg a bit. That leg's going away from us, so the ellipses are going to be tilted more like this. You can actually look at the fabric to kind of gauge those. So I'm going to include that little triangle wedge in the buttocks, or as a little anatomical landmark for myself. That helps me anchor the spine a little bit. I'm doing this. The torso here. Pit of the crotch is about here-ish. Front of the face is about there. Front of the nose somewhere there. And this is the jaw and ear intersection somewhere there, I want to say. Mind you, it's perfectly valid to, like, if you're doing an illustration or something like this, to do a study like this as a starting point. A draw-over study of a pose. Like, because you're not tracing it, you're trying to understand the rhythms of it. Like, you could spin this around to a different pose or reposition the limbs or something, or push it beyond what is happening here to make it into your own. Or you could do something that's pretty close to the actual action and put your characters on it or something. But of course without tracing. Also, when you're doing those, like, those big line of action lines, try to get big, long, confident strokes in them. You can draw, like, more light, like, this kind of, like, light-handed sort of flowy approach right here. This is not chicken scratching. This is not chicken scratching. This is, like, flowy, gestural sort of building, sculpting sort of stuff. Like, you want to avoid chicken scratches. I do chicken scratches sometimes, which is really annoying and a bad habit. You want to get like good flow to your drawings. With nice, loose, confident strokes. When you're searching and building, sometimes you might lapse a little bit into chicken scratching, but you would just want to, if you do that, you can usually erase it and try again or try simplifying. Chicken scratching is a sign of a lack of confidence in whatever you're drawing. But searching, like productive kind of gestural searching, is an animator tool. And I'm trying to get more fluent at it. But let me show you a good example of that real quick. So I think, okay, Google, how much time left on timer?
There's 22 seconds left.
Okay. Well, we've had 5 poses, so that's or 4 poses, so that's enough for this set. So okay, Google, stop timer.
No problem. It's canceled.
Okay, Google, set timer for 7 minutes.
7 minutes, and we're starting now.
All right, so a great person to look at for what I'm talking about, how that applies to animation, is the animation of Glenn Keane. If you can find stuff of his like rough animation, you can see he's searching in these and stuff, but he's like constructing and building and so on. You see, like he starts with a kind of like a lighter touch, and he kind of works in and so on, and then he like defines the lines more. This is like a really rough and loose Scrooge, for example. But you can see like he treats lines as like a sculpting tool almost, as if he's like sculpting some clay. Oh, here's some studies he did for Fox and the Hound, I think. Yeah, that's really getting back there. Oh, there's a Tim Burton drawing from when Tim Burton was working at Disney. Let's see here. Here's some aerial rough animation, but you can see like those. He's sculpting the stuff. Like this is not chicken scratchy. This is like productive gestural drawing that he uses his whole arm and stuff to do this on. And you can really see when it comes together when the stuff's in motion like this. Or even this. Like, look at how scribbly this is. Because he's trying to search out the motion for this pass at the animation. And this is like much more, this is like still pretty rough, but it has a lot more tied down than that last one I showed you. Honestly, looking at these, I'm thinking we should maybe consider doing like some studies of. I'm gonna not maybe necessarily do this today, but let's put a pin in doing studies of Glenn Keane animation, especially his work on Tarzan. Like do studies of Glenn Keane rough animation drawings. God, that's an Alvin and the Chipmunks drawing by Glenn Keane, I think, when he was working on the Alvin and the Chipmunks movie. But yeah, you can see like a high-level animator like this. It starts to become less about like accurately kind of getting the figure right every time versus like trying to get the performance and then coming back later and sort of trying to get the performance feeling right and sculpted into an action that feels right for the acting and the attitude and the posturing and the feeling of weight, and then coming back in and tying it down more to get it more like on the model and on the volumes and stuff. Like his initial pass is usually pretty. He tries to keep it within the volumes of the character model though, so. Let's see if we can find footage of him drawing, but there he is. There he is when he was working on Beauty and the Beast. There he is more recently. Thrilled to announce I'll be directing Pearl Studios' Over the Moon as a world premiere for film for Netflix. I mean, Over the Moon. Is that out yet? I guess it came out. Weird. Oh, it's a CG film. Yeah, actually, no, I do remember this. I think I should probably take a look at it sometime. But yeah, Glenn Keane. Let's see what he's been up to, actually. It's lovely. Got nominated for an Academy Award. That's cool.
Drawing.
Ooh, here we go. Netflix France put out a masterclass with Glenn Keane. Let's maybe put that on after class. How does that sound? Let's watch this together after class. So let's see, maybe he does a drawing demo during this. That's what I'm looking for. There's recordings of him giving lectures and doing drawing. Here we go, yeah. Keane lecture. Keane lecture. Lecture at CalArts in 2013. Glenn Keane sharing tips for character animation. Glenn Keane lecture. This is a much older Glenn Keane lecture at CalArts. Glenn Keane's 5 tips for animation. I don't know if that was by him or not. This is not Glenn Keane. This is by Ryan Woodward, who's a really freaking amazing animator. This was all hand animated. This is rotoscoped from some actors he hired, but this uses all the principles of everything we're talking about. But this is what I'm talking about. Like you can do tracing in this method. Basically, this is rotoscoped, but he uses method. But it's rotoscoped, but not traced. Like you can see. Okay, Google, stop. You can see areas where he exaggerated and he embellished things and stylized things. He's been doing some interesting things lately with 3D that I've been seeing him post on Twitter too. He also does figure drawing instruction as well. Why am I not subscribed to him? But yeah. Oh, what's this? That's cute. He made a little bit of animation there. There we go. There's his Twitter. Yeah, I already follow him. You can see some more of his animation here. He posted something really interesting recently with 3D animation, if I recall. I don't think I see it right now, though. But yeah, his Twitter account is something to follow too, so I'm going to add that to the chats. Good inspirational material. Oh, that's cool. This looks like yeah, this is the reference footage he shot for that one project that I just showed you. The that thing. That's neat. Ballet rotoscope. What the hell? Let's take a quick look at this before we go to our next set. I'll save this to look at more later. This is cool. It looks like an animator did like animator or artist did like a bunch of rotoscope little kind of geometric form studies and arc studies and line of action studies. And gestures, like scribbly gesture studies over the figure. Looks like this might have been done in Blender Grease Pencil or something along those lines. Almost. That's neat. Anyway, so we're going to get back to a drawing set now. We're going to be doing a set of... You know, I think I feel pretty bold about... Let's take what we got on screen, but we'll try to be really bold with it. So I think we're going to do some 5-minute poses where we try iterating on what we're doing. So I'm going to give, since some of you have already started on this one, I'm going to start on it as well. Okay, Google, set timer for 20 minutes. 30 seconds.
20 minutes, and that's starting now.
Okay, Google, add 1 minute to timer. Okay, Google, add 1 minute to timer.
Done. 1 minute added to your timer.
I'm going to try to be a little bit bolder on this. Start with the head, down to the pit of the crotch there. I can kind of gauge the center line a bit. Let me adjust this. Yeah, at a certain point you have to like, you can't really like be a slave to what you're seeing with the model doing. You have to kind of make it come alive on your own terms. If that makes any sense. But you kind of have to, before you do that, you have to really be very observant of the model and be able to, if you need to, replicate what the model's doing as best you can. Someone wrote on their page, I can't erase how. Well, you just hide the visibility of the layers that you drew on in order to create. Make sure you save your drawing space before you hide layers and create new layers to draw on. So I got this fencing pose here to start with. Let's see what I can do with it. Like, I'm gonna pretend I'm an animator.
Yo, Spacedad,
gonna-
I don't think we can hear you through Discord.
Really? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Dude, I
Okay.
was just doing my thing. You
It's
know,
weird
like,
that it cut out like that. Yeah, you have to hide in order to like you have to find the layer that you drew on if you want to erase, but mainly the main thing you got to do is you got to hide the layer to create a blank drawing space for yourself. See, this looks a little awkward. I'm gonna try to come in a little stronger with this. So I'm sort of skipping ahead here with trying to get more defined forms in. But I'm doing this to sort of gauge myself a little bit. So, you know, that thigh is looking really long. Let's try this again. Okay, I'm going about this the wrong way. Let's see here. Need to make some adjustments. So like that thigh there. This leg going down like this, because this thigh is taking the weight of the body here. So I need to recalibrate myself a little bit doing these right now. Oh, time for another pose. But we're not going to use this one. We're going to go to another one. Yeah, that's a good one. So, Heartbreaker, I have a prescription for you. I do not want you to. Do not want you to see you doing any chicken scratches for the rest of the session. If you make a line, I want you to make a single line, and think before you put down the line. There's a lot of problems I'm seeing you run into right now with proportion and other things. Proportion's a little less important right now, but there's like severe like distortion happening in the figures that I'm seeing you draw. So if I could just get in here with you real quick. I'm going to draw this really small down here, but so what I want you to do is try to draw like nice smooth lines to describe the form and move through it slowly, like that. Okay, we got something like this started for like the overall line of action. Now we have enough to work with to kind of get some secondary lines of action in. Just keeping it really simple. What you get should look a little bit along the lines of like a Japanese cuneiform, just a little bit. And that's like your starting point for doing these. The main thing is that you want to kind of, you're drawing too much of the outside of the form right now. You want to kind of get like the overall feeling of the thing.
My Wi-Fi glitched. Can you go on before I lost your proportion?
What's that? What's that?
He said he lost you at proportion because his mic cut out.
Oh.
Or his audio or something like that.
Okay, well what I'm saying is I want you to draw in long, simple strokes. I want you to, because you're doing a lot of like this. That's just tangling up your drawing. Like you want to look for like long, simple strokes to describe the figure. Like that. And also pay attention to proportion, like so it doesn't, you don't like, your proportions aren't going to be perfect because these are quick sketch, but I want you to kind of like generally kind of realize that like the torso is probably the torso is like here is looking like really wide and huge compared to the legs for how you did them here. So like if I could do a draw over here, like this arm is going to be going way off panel here. I think I'm actually have to resize your drawing so I get more space to do the fixes here. But let's see. Where did you draw this on? But this is why doing I think drawovers would help you a lot too, because it would start to improve your visual memory. Let's see. There we go. Alright, so I've taken over your layer now. Shrink that down so I can get that something more manageable. So let's see. Let's make a new layer. Alright. So we'll go back to that pose real quick. Sorry, folks. A little bit of extra time on this pose for this demo. So what you want is you want like that nice kind of clean thrust. I want you to establish that first. You can draw over the line, but I want you to do like a long, clean stroke. Then I want you to like look for secondary line of actions like this, for example. And so that head's pretty large. Inherently, that head is large because he's wearing a fencing mask. So that might throw you off a little bit. But let's see. Like, the front of the face is about somewhere here, I would say. So get something in the ballpark there. So the proportions aren't going to be perfect, but you want to get something that's, like, reasonable. In fact, I think the legs need to be lengthened a little bit here. So this guy's pretty close to the ground because his stance is really wide. So that might be throwing off your sense of proportions here. But like this leg right here that's going to be coming back down to the floor, if you can measure it, you see that where his where his hand begins and his hip ends, where his hip starts and the end of his foot ends is about the same distance. So like here to here, it's about the same distance as like here to here for his hand. So we can use that to adjust the pose a little bit to get it more plausibly in the ballpark proportionally. So you want to use like different measurements of the body to correlate and measure. So I think the foot would actually be there. So erase this. But yeah, for the rest of this session, I want you to not avoid doing this and do this. Do like straights, C curves, and S curves. CSI. C curves, straight curves, and S curves. You want to, those are the building blocks or building lines of what you're going to be using on these. So I want you to concentrate on that. And if anything, this session, try to at least get like the lines of action in. And I would recommend doing draw over studies where you look for like simple lines of action. Like once you start getting like tangled up and stuff with like trying to take on more information at once than you're able to process at your current level, that's going to really visually confuse you. Mind you, this is something that I struggle with too, with like clearing out the noise to concentrate on the stages of the drawing that I need to concentrate on. So what I'm saying right now is a little bit of projection and a pep talk for myself as well. Sort of recenter things. But yeah, like for people that are doing this too, who like you get about to the stage or so, you can start doing stuff like adding like directional volume lines and stuff like for the ellipses around the body. These stuff that I was talking about with the gesture over the form, like the active and inactive sides of the gesture and the waterfall effect, still apply to this as well. But we're just starting you off with like a much stronger kind of like thrust to the pose. And the other thing is that as a little kind of ballpark estimate, like this is the figure puppet that you kind of want to use a lot of. So you got a head right here. This figure puppet is going to be about 4 heads by 4 heads. So 1, 2, 3, 4 about here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what you get, figure puppet like this. It has a bit of a crotch down here. It's got a couple of legs here, the knees about here. So there's your basic proportions of an 8-head high figure right there. And the width right here, if we turn the head on its side, so that, like, I want to say about 1.5 feet wide. Or a head, or maybe like a head wide. No, it's about like 1.5 feet wide, I'd say. Or you could actually like put 2 of the width of the head next to each other like that, and that's the proportions of the width of your body. But if you turn the head to the side, it's about like 1.5 feet. So I would say. So yeah, I hope that helps. I'm gonna screenshot this so that I can add that to chat. But yeah, like I said, I want you mainly concentrating on really simple lines of action, because like that's gonna help build your confidence in your line control right now. Getting too far into too much information too soon is gonna hurt you, because you don't have anything to focus on or anything to grab onto if you're doing too much too quickly. So try to keep your drawings pretty simple and focus on making them nice and clean. Anyway, so let's see what else I can do here. Is this Raboots' page? Yeah, it is.
Yes.
All right, so I think that I think you're starting to get a good sense of like acting and drama and personality stuff. There's balance and weight issues that I see happening here. Like on this one, you got kind of confused on. This one's working a little better because you paid attention to the compression of the foot. To be fair, I got really confused on this one myself because it was kind of a gear shift.
Yeah, I think the problem is I can't figure out how to get that back leg to shrink in space and kind of fold underneath that back leg to give it that sense of like, bend.
It kind of threw me off too. I kind of needed to do drawovers and stuff. I don't know, like it's kind of weird. Like it's easier for me to kind of pick out the stuff when I do a drawover of somebody else's than it is sometimes for me to do them. But yeah, I'll be able to see if I can help. Like this one feels a lot better for me, for example. And then this guy right here, you kind of I think that your gestures sometimes get a little out of control. Like this one's kind of waggly all over the place and stuff when it needs to be an overall strong, confident statement. And also I think that you have a lot of trouble currently sort of structuring your gestures, if that makes any sense. Like, I kind of feel like you sort of you need to pay a little bit more attention to like how your gestures are moving in 3D space and their proportions a little more, so you can structure them a little better. A lot of it is, I think there's a lot of like missing stairs of understanding like forms of anatomy stuff that's going to come out from practicing not just gesture but other things too. But this is also where doing drawovers of figures can help, because like I think you can kind of see a little bit of what I'm talking about at this stage of that's like where like your figures aren't quite making the singular statement that you want them to, and they kind of feel a bit flimsy. But that's where drawovers will definitely help. Like you can use them as drawovers of photos. Okay, Google, stop. And also there's nothing keeping you from like, you can go back in and do this to try to like pull the stronger stuff out of the initial drawings that you did. It reminds me, I wanted to go back to maybe this pose here. But you see how like the difference is like when I more firmly come in to make a stronger statement with it. When I firmly plant the feet, when I pay attention to like kind of the dimensionality of like the torso, for example, when I try not to let the legs get a little loosey-goosey, like right here, like this is kind of like, this is sort of like kids cartoon drawing versions of the legs right now. I need to maybe see the photo of what was happening here, but I'm going to maybe try to infer something. I don't know. I really need to see the photo for that one.
I crammed against the side of the page, honestly, for that
Yeah.
one. That's where I just kind of gave up on the legs for that.
This one's feeling a little bit better, I would say. I think this one's pretty good, actually. You're trying to do the directional lines over it, but... yeah, let's see here. So these guys right here, I do feel the personality coming off them, but again, you're getting kind of, there's like a little bits of stuff that's happening where you get kind of confused, I think. So there is, like, maybe like, trying to think of what would help you.
So normally I would just be doing like the flour sack puppet to try to set this up, but I was trying to engage the waterfall method that you were showing earlier.
Yeah, that might be a little bit much right now, honestly, because like you can't you need to kind of start with a sense of the confident thrust of the pose, which you are kind of doing a bit, but I think you need to commit more strength to the statement you're trying to make, if that makes any sense. And you can do that, like, you can basically do what I'm doing here. Like, I want to make a stronger statement out of this ambiguous statement I made earlier. You can go back in and do exactly this. Like, I often will do this on my own stuff. Like, man, I kind of, like, I wasn't able to clear out the noise in my head on what I was seeing when I was looking at. Like, it kind of got kind of visually confused and I got caught up in too much. Well, that's okay. I can just, like, go back in and do a draw over like this over my own work to push what I missed. So there is like little bits of hints. There's hints of stuff that I think is starting to come across for you, but like this, for example, the way you handle that leg area and stuff, that kind of bulgy sort of Michelin leg stuff. I mean, I realize that you were doing that. You were pressed for time on this, like me. But like, here's one way you could have handled that, like that, for example. And I do like that you did this, and you did go for the kind of different thrusting lines and stuff. You do. I noticed you get really confused about the legs and the thighs a lot. That seems to be a recurring thing with you. I would want maybe you to do a lot of, maybe do some drawer studies where you pay really close attention to what the legs and the thighs are doing. But generally speaking, like the so like you say you got like a box form of the legs or whatever, like generally speaking, like the feeling of the origin point of the legs is actually going to be about here for the gesture, right there. Not always. It can be like a little bit more like this sometimes too. But the big thing that I want you to take away from this is I need you to look at a lot more kind of examples of like how these rhythms of the leg work. One of them is like the Mike Battisti Force book. If you've seen his stuff.
Yeah, I've seen it pop up on YouTube a lot for his live streams.
Yeah, and there's also some George Bridgman stuff that sort of shows off some of the sort of layered interlocking structure of like the leg. So we're kind of tapping into those rhythms, a little bit of those rhythms here when we're doing these. It's tricky because you aren't used to like understanding these forms in 3D and stuff, but it's also why you start with gesture on this, but you kind of want to unify them a bit. Let's see here. What would also help is if I could see the pose again. I think I'll do that. I'm gonna have to manually find it here. Sorry, folks. There we go, found it. Alright, so, about this pose. This leg is taking the weight. So you need a gesture that feels like this leg is taking the weight. However you arrive at that is up to you, but it needs to feel like it's taking the weight and it's kind of like slightly turned away from us. This leg, however, is off the ground a bit and it's kind of heels lifting up a little bit. It's taking less of the weight. Or rather, it's not really taking in. It's kind of a little weightless compared to the other leg. The arm is tucked a little. The torso is bending up over that way. Also, on your own time, feel free to like basically like take multiple cracks at the same pose. If like something's not working right for you, you can like redo it or whatever a whole bunch. So I'm going to create a new pose set. I want people to either watch my demo or follow along with the pose set right now. I'm going to save this little demo file for Raboots real quick and then hide my layers. Yeah, planting those feet confidently and getting a good sense of like the that the legs are holding up the frame is something I want you to pay close attention to, because the lack of confidence in your legs is a problem area that I think you should definitely target to address.
Yeah, like I always have an issue communicating like the sense of weight.
That's something that you would need to do draw over studies for, to kind of observe. Like you need to like do that to kind of tap into the reality of what's happening a little bit better. Let's see here. I think it's better if I do... 1 second. Oh, geez, did I fucking... Sorry, folks. Give me a second. Yeah, okay, we'll start with this pose right here. I'm actually going to move on from doing that thing I was doing to draw over Raboots for, but we're going to start with this pose. I'm going to do a I'm going to do a freehand study of this.
Spacedad, would you Can you turn off the demonstration layers on
Yes.
my panel?
Thank you for reminding me.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
So I'm deviating a little bit from our procedure right now to do a continuous line exercise right now. Like, I'm paying attention to the line of action and the pose and stuff, but I'm trying to kind of sculpt into the scene of what's happening here a little bit without really moving my pencil from the paper. So now that I got this, lower opacity on it, and I'm going to go back in and do some of the procedure and embellish things that I might have overlooked or gotten off. So I've actually flipped my image here so that I can not get too caught up in replicating the pose and trying to replicate the feeling of the action. Like, oh, my eye will tend to get a little bit jaded sometimes, looking at the same pose for a little while. Something like this kind of help me break me out of my comfort zone. If my eye gets a little jaded, it can help a little bit. So keeping things like super loose right now. Even if you deviate exactly from the procedure like I just did, you can go back in and work in stuff like, for example, those kind of measurement lines for the weight in the center of balance. Alright, so now that I have the overall gesture of these poses down, I'm going to try to invent something based on what I did get down. There's enough information for here for me to kind of extrapolate some characters or some like kind of cartoon characters or something on this. So I'm going to do that. That's going to be my detour for right now. Keep forgetting I have to reset the daylight savings time with this clock over here. But yeah, I think I'm going to continue on this for the rest of the session, because like what I'm doing right here is kind of what I want to steer people in the direction of doing as they start getting more confident in their drawing. Start converting the drawings into characters and poses and stuff for things that you can use in your own work.
Yo, Spacedad, whenever you get the chance, can you review my work?
I'll take a look at it, but have you been doing the stuff that I told you to do?
I've been doing a little bit line of action, but I think I've been falling into my bad habits.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take a look at it, but I'm probably going to say the same thing I told you last time. I mean, there's only so much I can do if you don't take the next step to follow through on it. I mean, you're new to this stuff too, so I don't want to be too hard on you. But this is something that you're gonna run into if you get into a real drawing class. Like an instructor is going to give you feedback, and then if you don't follow through on that feedback, they're going to be like, I'm just going to tell you the same thing I told you last time. Yeah, if you're falling into the bad habits, then you know what you need to do. If you know that you're falling into the bad habits. I'll take a look at your stuff, but unless I've have seen some progress on that, there's not really much I can say. So right now I'm kind of roughing out the starting point for what could be a illustration or something. Or a cartoon drawing. I don't like how this foot is placed. I'll really kind of fuck around with this some more later. Maybe do a silhouette test here. So the silhouette test that I'm using here, it's a compositional and a character design thing. Or it's also a figure drawing exercise to test to see if the silhouette that you're making reads. Or how you can push the silhouette to make it read better. So I think that's probably reading pretty well as a decent starting point. But there's definitely more that can be done. Let's get the other figure in there. It looks like a potato. Jesus. Yeah, I don't like this fucking... I don't like the secondary figure. I think the secondary figure needs to be worked out a little better. Let's try this. Maybe I can start with like the big simple shapes first. Now we're getting somewhere. I think I have to alter the pose a little bit for what I want to do with it. So this will be the front, like that. Like, I feel pretty good about that guy as a starting point, but this other pose has some issues. So I'm flipping the direction that the pose is facing us. So that means this foot would be going back here somewhere. Might be an opportunity to do a draw over, see what I can extrapolate. I'm gonna start with a fresh drawing and do a draw over study, but try to turn these into characters. All right, so So a draw over like this. If you're trying to like turn it into characters and stuff, you start playing with it, you start seeing how you can push things around and how you can modify it to fit whatever you're trying to say. Like, for example, like I know that this guy, I want him to look more like he's more agonized and falling over. And I want this other character here, I'm going to modify them to be something else. But I have a few ideas of how I'm going to push them to really emphasize the action here. This guy's really going to be going over that way. She's stabbed him in the gut, and then it's like there's going to be like a spray of blood out here. It kind of follows an arc. Of her arm going back up over there. Okay, maybe I'll dip his leg more into the foreground here. And then maybe beef up his head size and his upper torso a bit and shrink this. Let's maybe push her over this way. So she has a wider stance, and she has her hips shifted over that way more. Yeah, see, that's already looking more interesting to me. So keep doing time poses. This is just what I'm doing for the rest of the session here. This kind of development based on a draw over. I want to show you a little bit about how you can use draw overs as starting points for creating story scenes. Creating scenes for your comics or your animation or whatever. Like from this I was able to push it more. Adjust it to my liking. And I can keep playing with this until I get like a good framework of what I want to make a character drawing from. So I'm going to beef up the hand size a bit. The upper torso is slightly larger than it was in the original. I moved this hand up here. That makes him seem more kind of off balance. Turned his head a little bit more towards the camera so we can potentially see more of the pain on his face reacting to the stab. More of a bend to his torso. Ugh. He's not catching himself as much. He's like, he's about to fall over. So I'm kind of debating what to do with that other foot there, but this foot would be more planted. But maybe this leg would be more kind of... Let's try this a little. Maybe he's starting to let go of his blade. The blade's starting to kind of come out of his hand a bit. So maybe this leg is really bent. Let's try that. So for the purposes of this, like, performance in the drama here, I'm treating this stab as if it's like a well-deserved stab of revenge for something horrible that this character did to this character, maybe. Like this was a stab that was a long time coming, or something. Yeah, the drama of the gesture drawing is what you start with. And I just want to show people that like you can just like you can use a draw over as a starting point to kind of play with something. Like this is the guts of what you'll eventually work up into a more solid drawing, basically. Since it's like quick and gestural and loose, you can play with pushing things, you can play with just like quickly scribbling down notes of ideas and stuff. And then it becomes like a basis for what you will do for like the more finished drawing. Let's give it the silhouette test. That's a shitty hand. I'm not going to accept that hand. I don't know. I feel a little bit brain damaged today, to be honest, about when it comes to hands and some other things. Let's do a simple shape. Oh, Jesus, fucking, I hate this hand. Okay. So I didn't really work it out or anything. This is still shitty, but it's significantly less shittier now. It's a weird angle for this hand, too, so... I just need something in the ballpark to help me with the silhouette here. It is almost quitting time. Hope that you guys got a good session in today. We're going to try to take a look at some live action videos next Wednesday or Friday. Friday we might actually do an anatomy study day, but I'll see. I do want to get some video studies in this week, but I wasn't prepped for that this evening. There we go. Yeah?
Do you mind taking a look at mine real fast? Or...
Sure, just give me a sec. I want to fill in the silhouette on this other guy here before we move on. Take a look at that reference image here.
So the next class is Wednesday then?
Yes. My classes are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Here you see I got some pretty serviceable silhouettes out of that. That was from a draw over. And I could keep going with this. Like, there's other things that after seeing the silhouettes that I would want to like push and iterate on. Like, I can see like how. Let's see. I could play with proportion a bit. Like this guy. Proportion posing, widen his stance. This guy could be even more pushed. Like the sword could actually be like falling out of his hand a little bit more. Be more of a thrust there. More slack to the limb there. So now that I have like the silhouettes, I have something a little bit more like I've cleared out the noise of the initial sketch a bit, and now I can pay attention to another iteration of this drawing. And I can keep modifying and changing it as I go. I have this guy reaching towards the camera like that. So that thigh comes really close towards the camera. The knee does, anyway. To figure out what angle I'd put the sword at to make it look like it's coming out of his hands. So this is wound up turning into kind of a study for a character design that I've been working on the past several weeks. I just wanted to get a little bit more of that down. But yeah, I mean, that's just what I'm talking about. Like, you can keep iterating on a pose that you start with from doing a draw over study. You can start to create your own characters and scenes using them. By pushing them, modifying them, stuff like this is a little bit more realistic. It's a little bit more cartoony and pushed. Or considerably more cartoony and pushed. Then I can keep playing with it until I kind of figure out what I want to say with it, and then nail it down. So yeah, let's take a look at what people have been doing. Yeah, Train, these are looking pretty good. Pretty good. Much better than I've seen you do before. There's still some stuff with like the perspective that I think you're kind of getting a bit off, but I see you starting to wrap your head around it some more. There's some good stuff that I'm seeing with you trying to pull long strokes and rhythmic lines and stuff. I'd say do some more draw-over studies for sure. A lot of it's going to be like just keeping this up and keep confidence building. Keep exercising your powers of observation. And the draw-over studies will definitely help with reorienting that. That's why I assigned 50 draw-over studies, 50 copy studies this week for everyone.
Okay. Sounds good.
I had to go thanks to the class. Oh well. And here's my draw-over studies that I did earlier. I mean, if you can play with a pose like this to start with, for example, that usually gives you a good foundation to... Like, these are actually... I think these are actually stronger starting points than what I started with for that last character drawing that I did. Like, I could seriously probably take, like, some of these and make like much stronger character drawings than the one that I just did, because there's a lot more thought that went into those.
I kind of missed the first part of the class. Are those arrows just looking at the direction? Like,
yeah, the direction, trying indicating the direction of the pose and stuff. There's a lot more energy in these because I'm putting a lot more intentionality into them. This is a method that I need to practice more. But I'm just getting started with myself, so I need to put more repetition into it myself. I sort of kind of deviated from that a little ways through our session in order to kind of do more designing stuff. But yeah, there was like some more of it here. It's going to be a lot more repetition and practice, really, for all of us. Also, if you don't get something right, you can always just like erase or draw over it again or try to fix it. If something's off, just like don't be satisfied with it. Like try to correct it or push it into a better place. And the point of drawing really quickly and simply is so that you can either erase it or you can reposition something, or add some mass to something. But try to make a fairly strong statement to start. Yeah, one thing I definitely need to do. I'm trying to like hopefully bridge the gap of me like not doing finished drawings and stuff, because I have not been doing finished drawings lately, which is actually kind of holding me back considerably. But like this is like the first step to what you would design into a finished drawing. Like I'd do like a bunch of this until I get the gesture of it. The gesture and the sketch really worked out. You want the sketch nice and worked out, so you can just go in and like add more structure and inking well, you want the structure worked out in the sketch before you do inking. But I mean, like, you want to start with like a really strong gesture, so you can start like thinking about the structure of the figure, like the 3D forms of it and so on. This guy's really very gestural right now, so I'd want to like iterate on this until I kind of feel a lot more confident with what I'm saying with it. But for now, this is pretty good for an expressive story sketch, I would say. Not so much for like a final finished piece. Let's take a look at what other people have done a little bit more. Zal's got some stuff here. I want to see Zal push himself a little bit more, though. Like I feel like there's way more you could do with. I mean, Zav has a really good sense of like kind of very anime-oriented anatomy, but I feel like they could do so much more if they really pushed. If they didn't get so caught up in the anatomy and they really tried to go for just making a really strong gestural statement first, and then design the anatomy around it. Like, think about the intensity of the drama that's happening. in whatever you're trying to do. That one looks pretty neat though. Like, how could we like modify this? Like, sort of playing with Zov's drawings real quick. Like, I like this. I like the idea of making like the impression that like you get the emotional impression that of this guy thrusting forward. So I added like some motion blur things right here, and I'm playing with kind of stretching out the body a bit more than what he did. But I think maybe keep this thigh. This is about the same. Like, let me push that a bit. And then you can really frame this guy's head in there. So you see his reaction of like, haha, he parried. Is Zov still here, by the way? I hope they're still here. They're not still here. That's sad. I'll do a little copy paste over their of the demo that I did. There we go. It's just a little something to get like some more energy going in there. Like you can riff and play off something like that. Yeah, stuff like that. Oh. It's only these on this page, I think, right? We've gone about 15 minutes overtime right now, so I'm gonna be calling it.
Sorry, I couldn't find the controls to make a new layer, so I had to keep like saving and deleting.
That's fine. Yeah, the new layers you can hit Control N or this little page button right here on the right, or Shift N. Shift N is new layer.
Oh, it's being hidden by my taskbar.
So anyway, what I'm planning on doing tomorrow, I actually want to do more of this stuff, but not on stream. There's a bunch of things I want to go over tomorrow, and we're gonna do it in my Discord sometime during the day. I'll be having us doing some action studies and maybe some live action fencing studies. tomorrow. It's part of practice session. It'll be more of this kind of stuff. And be another session for you to practice. Practice more of this. And get feedback and whatnot. But it's roasting hot in this room right here, and it's sapping my energy, so I'm going to call it a night. Thank you all for coming. This has been a good session. I'll see you guys on tomorrow or on Wednesday.
Yes.
So I'll do a ping. I'll do a. Oh, real quick before I go, if you want to participate in that thing tomorrow, I'm not going to ping the Space Cadets tag. I'm going to ping the Super Space Cadets tag. If you want to join the Super Space Cadets thing, that is in the Super Space Cadets section here in my Discord right here, which is a special category that makes your name green. You click this to opt in or opt out of it, and this is for people who want to be pinged more often for like certain things like that, where like I'm doing like a special events or drawing events and stuff. In the future, I'm going to have separate categories for like figure drawing sessions or things like that to ping individually, but for now, this is what I used for like my day-to-day stuff. Like as you can see, I mainly use the Space Cadets tag for pinging like whenever the classes are going up. But this is for the special extracurricular study group mainly. So tomorrow, whenever I'm doing stuff, or when I'm notifying people that I'm going to be doing stuff in a little while, I will ping this tag. So make sure you click this if you want to get pinged for that tomorrow, and make sure you leave the server unmuted. I try to, mind you, you can opt in and opt out of this by clicking this thing. So like if you don't want to be pinged someday, you can click that. But I would encourage people to leave the server unmuted so that you can be pinged on when study groups are happening. Normally I only try to ping about a maximum of 2 times a day in the Space Cadets tag, and usually on the days that I actually have my classes. Oh, and in addition to that, I want to direct people's attention to the class schedule. There's a Google Calendar sheet here, which you can add to your phone or your you can add to your smartphone or whatever like that, and it'll ping you. You can set it up so it'll notify you on your desktop PC or on your smartphone, even if it's an iPhone. You can sync Google Calendar with your iPhone calendar. To ping you like I think about like 30 minutes before the class begins. Oops. Yeah, as you can see, my current schedule is just Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Saturday's the 2:30 p.m. class in Ethan's server. Yeah. I'm currently going to be talking to, one more thing, I'm going to be talking this week to an animator who I'm trying to get a animation curriculum set up so that we can start doing that hopefully, if not next week, the week after. But we'll see how that goes. I am going to be concentrating next month on storyboarding because I'm going to be taking a storyboarding class. But we'll hopefully get a little bit of animation in between now and then. But yeah. I'm going to let you guys all go now. Thank you all for... How many we got? We got 19 people. Well, yeah. Oh, no, now I remember what I was going to do. We were going to watch the Glenn Keane thing afterwards. Okay, everyone who's currently in the Discord or wants to be in the Discord for this, stick around. I'm going to screen the Glenn Keane film that I found, where he talks about his. Here's the Discord link in Twitch for anyone who wants to join this. But yeah, this will be an excuse to keep drawing, if you like. Keep drawing, keep vibing. You can watch Glenn Keane draw. It'll be fun. So I'm going to put that on. So I'll see you guys in the Discord shortly if you guys are going to stick around. All right, so shutting down the stream now.